dawned on you already that what I'm talking to you about is a endocrine system which is really quite unusual. So the sort of prevailing wisdom about how this might work, and it doesn't actually, would be the following: that you have, in terms of leptin and response, lean individuals might be hyper-responsive to this hormone, whereas obese people would respond the same but have a blunted response, and that the role of the hormone would be catabolic, that is, to prevent the gain of body weight. And for lots of evolutionary reasons that I just mentioned, it would be unwise to devise such a hormone, because evolutionarily what we've dealt with is not the need to suppress body fat, but to keep it above a critical level. This is not how this hormone works. It is how a lot of hormones do work. For example, thyroid hormone. If you give more thyroid hormone to a person, you'll get more catabolic response. Obese and lean don't differ in this way, but that's an example of a catabolic hormone. Leptin is a different kind of hormone. It's there to protect body fat. So what you see when you study this anabolic response, that is protection of body fat, is this unusual, or at least to me intriguing, situation. So here's the anabolic response represented on this horizontal line. Very little horizontal response, very little leptin response if you get out to very high levels. What the system is tuned to do is to see whether your level has dropped to a critical low for you as an individual. And when that happens, it sets off a major anabolic response: drive to eat, reduction in energy expenditure, that I'll describe to you a little bit more in a moment. And the only major difference between obese and lean individuals is not the strength of the response, but when it occurs. So lean individuals, it occurs at a lower concentration of this hormone. So they are, in a sense, defending a lower amount of body fat than an obese individual. And one of the reasons, as I'll show you in a moment, that obese individuals defend higher body fat has to do with the genetics of the regulation of body weight. So this is a system which is unlike most endocrine systems in that it has threshold or action points that are determined by various intrinsic or developmental characteristics of the individual. So here is this model shown in a slightly different way. So here is that line that is, this for the obese person would be here, and for the lean person it would be here. This is their threshold. This is the point at which you trigger this anabolic response. And obese people have a higher threshold based on genetics, as I'll talk to you about, some developmental things that can influence the level of this threshold. I'll show you some examples of that. Imprinting, meaning things that occur in the brain or other parts of the system on an acquired basis, and the environment itself. And lean individuals having a lower threshold are defending a lower body weight. So if you think about it, what you're doing, and many of you do this at least partly for a living, when you try to reduce the obesity of an individual or the adiposity, is you're simply driving their level of fat cells, size, and maybe not number, but certainly size, down, so that they now produce less leptin. We know this. This is a lawful relationship. That part's okay, but they're now not producing enough leptin to get over this threshold. And we know, and I think Mike will show you some more examples of this threshold does not change as you reduce your body weight. This is something that you acquire on the basis of genetics and development. You may be able to make it go up, as I mentioned to you in a moment, but it doesn't go down with weight reduction. So this individual who you have reduced the body weight of now is sending a signal to the brain insufficient to make the brain think that there's enough body fat around. For this particular individual, this causes the individual to become hungry and to reduce their energy expenditure. And this is what ultimately defeats most weight reduction efforts, at least 90 or 95% of them. And the restoration of body fat allows the individual to come back to a physiologic state that's more comfortable. And as I mentioned, if you drive the concentration of this hormone up by injecting it into a human in very high levels, you really don't get very much of a response. The business end of this system is on the reduction side, not on elevation. Otherwise, this person would not get obese.